Good. Seems we're good to go. The floor is yours, Rory. This is it.
Okay, I'm doing the thing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 46 of State of Exile. With me tonight, hailing all the way from the icy peaks of Australia, it's ZiggyD. The D stands for Dashund. No, sorry, Dashing. Read my notes wrong. He's Dashing. And in the right corner, the time traveler who only goes forward all the way from the 20th century, it's Zeno Side. But we're friends, so you can call him Zeno. And now, their guest, it's senior designer and all-around classy guy of grinding gear games, Rory. This wasn't part of the script. What is he doing? Rackham! And then I've got a note here that says wild applause. Beautiful.
That was a beautiful intro, Rory. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
It was better. It was better the third time around.
That's good. That's good. I don't know if I've got a fourth in me, but yeah.
No, that's good. Okay. We're good. It's still green. Thanks, Rory, for that.
Hi guys, welcome to your show.
Thank you.
I realize...
I think this is the first time we've ever had a guest intro us.
No.
Pretty amazing.
Awesome.
I like it.
Good. Yeah, that's the last time. Nah, it might be that. We'll see.
That's it. No more. So, Rory, we got a lot of things to talk about today. We have an hour to do it. Let's just kick things off. We got Ascendancy on the way. You've been releasing some awesome new skill gems. Let's start it off right away with the melee name lock, as Ziggy puts in quotation, Dan's game skills. We're 2016 now. Path of Exile has been out for a hot minute. Why are we still at, it's Reave or bust, it feels like. Cyclone or bust. We want some more skills like that. Why don't we have that yet in Path of Exile?
So we're working on, and as soon as the Ascendancy Expansion is going to be out, we're going to be working hard on getting improving the targeting for the targeted melee skills. We really want to make it so that shift attacking with a melee skill is much more effective and much more reliable. There's sort of, I know Ziggy said in the past that multi-strike makes those skills work, and even then it's only 2 out of the 3 hits that it actually works with. So we want to just improve the targeting so it's something you can more reliably do and to just make it feel better. That should let a lot of melee skills become easier to play at in-game, a lot easier to play at in-game. But we're also working on melee skills that are more like Ground Slam, more AoE things that are a wee way off yet. But yeah, there's some cool new melee stuff on the horizon.
I thought for a while you guys were going for, we're mostly just trying to move away from those and doing more AoE style stuff. And obviously we've got Earthquake and that coming up. But we did have Frostblades and Wild Strike, which were both released at the same time. I'm like, well, I was keen to play a new melee build, but no, it's not going to be happening because they're both that actual targeting style. So you're still interested in doing skills that have that real single target kind of attack to them, right?
Yeah, I mean it's lets us do a lot more with it in terms of from a tech standpoint. Like Melee Splash works with them and various other supports. Like we haven't been releasing many supports that modify that sort of stuff because they're not very popular skills to start with. But we would be able to do a lot more. Yeah, have more support diversity for melee skills if we were able to improve that targeting thing. Frostblades and Wild Strike were sort of, we had the role that we needed to fill, and these were the skills that were developed for them. And they didn't work that well because they still required you selecting a target, but we needed to fill that space in the quest rewards. And they work fine at lower levels. It's just once you have higher attack speeds and larger groups and so on that it becomes a real problem.
So you want to get them out to fill that role and then have your improvements come through later to make them a bit more playable.
And we want to do the improvements right. We want it so that if it's a skill like Lightning Strike where the direction you're targeting is really important, then it still goes the direction you want it to go, but it will be more likely to hit something directly in front of you with the attack portion of the skill.
How does the targeting work currently, right? Because I've done some testing, and it seems like if you attack just behind a mob, not actually name locking them, you still hit them. So is there a small AoE there, or how's that work exactly?
It draws a line to your melee distance in front of you, and if the first thing it hits is the thing that goes well. Monsters have a size, it's the fact that the monsters are a few units large that makes it work, but they're not that big. I think, in fact, they've probably got smaller over time just so you can get swarmed by them more easily and things like that.
So you said you're looking to do some improvements to that like auto targeting. Then how are you doing that? Are you going to like add it? Because what I've been talking about is adding like a small like cleave style AOE to single target skills where it can select a target. Like I feel like that would be one possible solution. How are you guys looking to improve it? Like you mentioned,
We're not going to make the skills have each basic attack have its own AOE, but do something like that for how it does damage. Probably this is going to be something that the lead program is going to be involved with because it's a major change to how we do a lot of skills. So I can't really give you the defined answer on how it's going to turn out, but we'll try out a few different things and see what works best. Really.
Okay.
Touching up on some other melee skills, so Melee Splash got a major rework this expansion, and the best thing about Melee Splash is if your skill gem you're using, such as Infernal Blow, automatically has AoE associated with it, it feels really, really good. However, like when you're playing a Ranger, it's like I feel like I have to go to the Witch, or I have to start as a Sign to get enough AoE, or use the increased AoE gem to still get that more multiplier to do something, or I need quality Melee Splash. Is there maybe some way in the future, like the bottom right side of the tree, would be able to get some kind of like melee AoE nodes in the future?
It's been discussed. Really, I mean, what I'd prefer to do, I mean, you're going to get as much AoE as you can get, no matter what you want to. Like, AoE is the most valuable thing for any character, so we don't want to force like witches to now go to the ranger to get that AoE. We discussed moving more AoE to melee weapon clusters and things like that, but you're still, now every build that wants to play an AoE skill has to get those clusters.
Yes.
Really, the preferred answer is to make either it not as important to get, or that most of your AoE comes from the skill itself, or from something that's not as build changing as the passive tree.
Perhaps more gem qualities could give more AoE instead of like 10% damage.
Yes.
There are things We've revealed helmet enchantments, right? You guys know about the helmet enchantments. So having AoE on as one of the possible helmet enchantments for specific skills is going to be one of those things where an in-game character can work towards getting a helmet enchantment for their skill that increases its AoE for the skills that really need it.
That's
stuff like that.
Yeah, I like improving that way too.
In the current state of the game, I'm playing I was playing a Viper Striker earlier this league, and I was like, I feel like I have to go to the Witch Tree to get a decent enough AoE to get enough clear speed to feel, competitive. And without that, it's like I feel bad because I'm spending like 8 travel points just to get that Witch Cluster, and it's nice to hear, something like Helmet Enchantments are coming.
There's like nothing else there for you either, really.
We tried an earlier version, I think it actually went to alpha, where we had even less AoE on the tree. Like you saw, we reduced those clusters from 20% to 15%. It was down to sort of 5% on the Witch and Templar nodes. And there was the alpha community immediately went into uproar at that point. And it also, that change meant moving AoE to skill gems. So every time the gem leveled up, it increased in AoE, which was... it sort of went against support gems should be the thing that's increasing the gem most of all, rather than the gem itself. Correct. You want to level your gem, but you want to choose AoE rather than have it be forced upon you, even if it's a choice that most people will end up making later in the game. So we went back on that change, but it's definitely something we're still thinking about.
It's just hard to play a skill such as Static Strike, for example. Even with the quality AoE, it's like it'll never compete with Reave because Vaal Reave exists. So you're always like, well, I could play this skill, but I could just go Vaal Reave and have screen-wide AoE with 0 investment in the tree. You know what I mean? So it's like it's an awkward point for Melee where it's like, where does the AoE come from? We need more of it. But I'm glad to see you guys are working on that.
Is there much regret there with the whole Vaal Reave thing? Because it's basically the skill and the skill pairing that everything else is measured by now. How is that for you guys as devs?
It's interesting. I mean, it's not that high up on the list of skills that people are actually using. Like, compared to Cyclone, it's nothing, and the Cyclone's AoE is tiny compared to Reave plus Vaal Reave. So it's not something that's sort of really come up as a big problem. But then again, the popularity of these sort of things shift very rapidly, often based on what streamers are playing it at the time. So I'm sure if both of you guys started playing Vaal Reave exclusively, then we're going to see way more people doing it. It's
There's always people playing Cyclone, especially early on in the leagues. I think that keeps the popularity of it going, just it being such a good all-round solid skill as well, even if it doesn't have that AoE. It's true.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the one ability spam meta and the newest teaser videos for Frost Bomb and Orb of Storms. So we have these new it seems like these skills that are used to supplement your main skill. Would you like to explain the direction that Grinding Your Games was thinking about, or what you were thinking about when you decided to come up with these?
Sure. First, to just address the one skill spam thing, it's quite common in ARPGs to have a one skills spam thing. I mean, not every ARPG. Some ARPGs force you to have multiple skills, but if you, especially in Path of Exile, if you choose to just want to use one skill, you can build your character in a way that you can use just one skill. And there's enough going on in the game with different monster varieties and the positioning that you need to be in and all that sort of stuff, that the game is still interesting even if you are casting one skill. However, we want it so that if you want to use multiple skills, you're rewarded as such. We tried this out in a few different ways. There was Flame Surge, which was sort of the first, you got to be using this with another skill in order to be getting that bonus. And that wasn't super successful, but that might have just been the way that it did its AoE damage, the way it had AoE and was more simple.
I remember when it came out, it was pretty much everyone was trying to make it work as a main skill because that's what we were used to. We weren't used to this idea of a support skill, and I'm like, guys, this is a single target for spells, get it? But it's like, no, it didn't really click, and I think no one ended up using it as a result.
Yeah, it's also the support. I mean, the gem system of the game doesn't naturally support you having two primary skills, so we need to make the secondary skills either as powerful as a 6-link when they're 4-linked, or have something that is effectively adding more supports to your 6-link, which is kind of the direction we're going with the Orb of Storms and Frostbomb, where they are something that still is decent 4-linked. Like, the damage of Frostbomb is pretty high. You can, we have tried out builds that are just multi-trap Frostbomb.
Can't wait.
And it's you have to get reduced duration and so on to actually get them going off in decent time. So you get less of the cold penetration bonus, but there is a single skill build for Frostbomb. It just also enhances any other cold damage you're doing in different builds.
So to make these, rather than having them compete with your 6-link or your main skill, because often, if you have two ways of dealing AoE damage to enemies, there's really not much point in having to, just use the one and just invest everything into that, like you're talking about with min-maxing. But these both have some sort of other effect that buffs your main skills. So one is a bit like a curse in that it reduces resistances, and the other one is it actually casts an extra bolt of lightning when you cast a lightning skill within a certain radius or something. Yeah,
that's right. The Orb of Storm is probably the most dangerous but most innocuous of these skills, because if you get crazy high cast speed, you're effectively getting all these extra bolts.
Rory. Does it work with cast on crit? So if you're standing inside that and you're shooting out a bunch of lightning spells with cast on crit, does it continue to shoot out things as well?
I don't believe it does. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it's if you cast it, but it works with attacks as well. So if you were cast on critting with with lightning strike or something like that, then that will be proccing off that as well. So
What?
Yeah,
that is crazy.
It's lightning skills, not lightning spells. So
how is balancing something like that that's supposed to arc out and deal damage to a boss when you're casting in it around the fact that people can get obscene amounts of attack or cast speed?
It's effectively it's adding X to Y lightning damage to your skills in a way. It gets a bit more complex when you include chain, because you can support it with chain to have it bounce additional times, and then the bounces off you become a bit more effective. It doesn't increase the DPS of its own orb if you're doing that, but it does of the lightning bolts that are bouncing through you. So there's a lot to consider with this, but it is also limited to just lightning skills. So that also means that a lot of the highest attack speed stuff doesn't if it worked with fire skills, then Incinerate would be insane with it, but luckily it doesn't. So there is that sort of measure of control, and that it's just lightning skills. So it's pretty complex. There's a lot to it, and we still haven't quite nailed down the actual damage numbers. And we didn't show off the stats on the gem because it's likely to change.
Of course.
But yeah.
What's kind of driving these new skills? Personally, I'm very happy to see like you guys expanding out in this direction of having these kind of like damage dealing support skills. What's driving this from you guys, and do you think that it's important for like to draw maybe people into the game to have it be more appealing to see, like when people are watching streams and things like that, or is it just more of a personal thing if you guys want more dynamic builds to play, or what's sort of driving that?
This kind of came from the gem quest reward philosophy, where we said this first gem you get on the beach is a decent single target. The second one is like your first small AoE that you can like is a supportable gem, and then at level 4 from the Mudflats quest you get the the gem reward that supplements your build. You're not using it as your primary skill. You're using it to be doing more than one thing during gameplay. If you want to. So we introduced a few more skills when we made the change to the skill gem progression to enable that, but we're working on more, and there's more to be revealed. We've got some melee ones for strength-based characters yet to be revealed, but that we're aiming for the Ascendancy patch as well. So we're sort of trying to, level 4 is the level where you can choose to have a more complex playstyle if you choose one of those things. Or you can go with Riposte or something like that if you just want passive damage occasionally.
Yeah, if you want it to be a little more automated and just focus on the one skill use. Okay. So it was kind of filling that gap. Do you think then, because you've done this cold and lightning orby style things, do you think it's going to be a fire one, or is that just like an idea for the future maybe?
Flame Totem is sort of the fire one that these two were designed to match up to. That is the level 4 skill that you're getting then.
Okay, so that's interesting, because that's not really the same. You can use it as a supporting skill certainly to add more damage, but it doesn't interact with the main skill like these do.
No, it doesn't. It is still better if you have points in fire and you're using other fire skills, of course. But it wasn't. I don't think we are going to change it to be like that. We might introduce another and move Flame Totem higher if necessary, but it kind of fills the role just fine. And it means
I get that.
Flame Totem is the one that anyone can use if they want as well, which is good to have that as an option. If you don't like Frostworm or you don't like Orb of Storms, you can still just pick up Flame Totem.
Until Ziggy got a nerf for leveling under the boss.
So, Rory, about a year and a half ago, you came on the show and you teased Herald of Anarchy and Herald of Stone, and they're nowhere to be found, as well as Lightning Golem. You got any information about those?
Lightning Golem, I've just been looking at the art for that at the moment, but I can't tell you what it does or how awesome it is or anything. Well,
can you tell us what it looks like at least?
Imagine a golem that's like lightning-y. It's sort of like that. Yeah, that's what I can tell you. As for Herald of Anarchy and Stone, we had a plan for Herald of Stone, but we then released the counterattack gems, which kind of filled the same role that Herald of Stone was going to fill, which is the Herald of Stone was going to be the reward for being hit, sort of thing, the making you tankier and rewarding you in the process. Herald of Anarchy we're definitely thinking about, especially with the inclusion of the Chaos Degen skills. So we are likely to see a Herald of Anarchy in the future, but not this patch. It's something we're still trying to find the right way to do, but we've got some cool ideas. I'm pretty happy with.
There's a lot going on in that arena too, with already having the 3 Chaos skills that kind of go together, and then potentially having Herald of Anarchy as well.
Yep. And we've been working on another, but it's still in development.
Another Chaos skill?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to turn out. It's being iterated on at the moment, so we try and find the right balance for it.
Sounds like it's in the early ball lightning stages back in the day. That was in development for over a year, wasn't it?
I can't remember, but yeah, it sounds like it. It's definitely one of those ones that a lot of things changed with it over time.
Oh, great. So let's move on to Earthquake. So right now you guys are hyping up Less Duration, kind of got the same buff that Slower Projectiles got. Suddenly more multiplier and its usefulness becomes much better, because right now it's only used for Lightning Warp. So the new Less Duration meta is in effect in Earthquake design. The whole faster always feels better. Earthquake kind of takes away.
Before we go on to Earthquake, because that's actually a really interesting topic that you bring up that I didn't think to put in the primer, so I apologize for springing this one on you, Rory. Yeah. But this idea of adding damage buffs to more and more support gems, a while back we kind of like just randomly threw around the idea, and I don't really know if I like the idea, but we were just talking about it. This idea of having damage buffs on most support gems so that it's more about selecting just the utility of the support gem. Are you guys moving in that direction? Because it seems to be happening.
It's only really where it makes sense. I mean, it's tricky because most support gems have 1 or 2 skills that they are a huge damage boost for. The ones that aren't are like the slower projectiles and the less duration. And slower projectiles made sense to make it like a concentrated effect where you lose the speed but you get damage as a result. Faster projectiles has the benefit of it feels like the focus is making it faster. It gets a small damage increase but not the multiplicative bonus. So it's not something we're going to be adding to every support gem to make it fill the slot. But it is something, it's sort of like a balancing tool. Not enough people are using the support gem, so we can slap damage on it, but it's sort of too easy to do it that way. It's better to make the effect worthwhile, if possible. For the slower projectiles and less duration, though, you're giving up a lot to take something away from the skill, usually.
Yeah. That's the thing though, with solar projectiles there's nearly always some sort of penalty with it. Like if you put it on lightning arrow or something, it's not gonna make much of a difference. It's not much of a penalty. But with something like
ball lightning.
Well, with something like less duration, that's not often a penalty on a lot of things. Like there's things like Earthquake and like Stormcall where it's not really a penalty to the skill. In fact, it's more of a buff in this regard. So then it's also got the damage buff on top. So what kind of prompted that less duration being a damage buff then?
It was, I mean, the fact was that even though it is a damage buff, it was nowhere near a damage buff equivalent to any other support gem that you could be using to fill that slot. Less duration is going to get more damage than other more damage support gems, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be concentrated effect. It's not going to have that level of damage boost to it.
Still something better than what we've had in the past.
It is going to have a damage boost, and it is going to be a multiplicative damage boost. So it just makes it less of a cost if you'd want to do that. And yeah, the situations where you were wanting to reduce the duration of skills, it wasn't worth giving up a support gem previously. So
I'm excited about less duration being more attractive, and I'm always excited about new strong things to play with. But I am also pretty concerned and conscious of the idea of making another mandatory support gem. Are you guys pretty worried about that as well, or is it getting to the point now? And I feel like it might be getting to this point where there's enough mandatory things that nothing is mandatory. When everything is mandatory, nothing is, right? Are you guys trying to get there?
I mean, ideally, you have, every skill is going to have a few mandatory ones. I mean, some ranged skills are always going to need multiple projectiles to make them feel like they're hitting what you want to hit. But it's nice if you have some leeway with a couple of skills where you can, a couple of supports where your 5th or your 6th or even your 4th support, you can kind of choose between a couple of things, whether you want your ball lightning to be better close up or you want it to be more AoE or something.
Okay.
But it's a tricky balance because it's different for every skill how much each of them value each support. So there's no real simple answer, no real simple way to do it.
Yeah, of course.
So now I'm going to transition into Earthquake.
Sorry, Zeno, thank
Faster is always better meta, but I'm just going to ask this straight out. Can Earthquake be used with Facebreaker? That's all I want to hear, Rory.
It's got the same requirements as Ground Slam, I believe. So
also, it would be so amazing.
It would be too amazing is the problem because Facebreakers have such a slow attack speed. You can pretty much guarantee the one hit per slam, one aftershock per slam.
Okay.
And it does crazy. Your Facebreaker's damage is already insane. So they get the Ice Crash was their big AoE skill for Facebreakers.
It was a good skill. We just need like 5 more of them. So let's do it.
So with the design of this Earthquake then, and I got the sense a while back with when you guys released Ice Crash and had it so that multi-strike didn't work with it, it was a slowest, heavier hitting skill, that you guys were trying to add some things in that were opposite to the generally held understanding that it's always better to get more attack speed, right? And we're getting to the point now where a lot of builds feel like you're waving a feather at things as fast as possible, which obviously screws the animations. It can be a little screwy and less satisfying to play. You lose a bit of the impact of skills and things like that. Was that kind of the intention with Ice Crash when you first released it?
Ice Crash, the not working with multi-strike and the slower base speed was both for how it with the theme of it, where it's like a big, slow, very devastating attack, but also just because the effects look really, really bad when right away you slap, like as soon as you get it, you slap multi-strike on it, and now you've got thousands of icicle spikes coming up all over the place. And so it made sense for both the theme of the skill for it to start off really slow. Now, obviously, you can speed it up as you get more attack speed as your character progresses. That's just the nature of the game. We didn't lock the attack speed like we say override the base attack speed with leap slam, but it was never meant to be like this makes you play slow. This is just it is naturally slower. You have to work harder to get that level of crazy attack speed. Earthquake, on the other hand, was very much this rewards you for fine-tuning and slowing down your attack speed for having it the right level.
How about with Reflect, though? That's a big, scary thing I'm worried about. If you're doing this one hit, this is your chance, just slap something and it dies, you're going to feel the pain. A Reflect map or a Reflect mob could potentially one-shot you.
Yeah, Reflect does really punish this like slower, heavy-hitting playstyle. How do you guys feel about that?
It's something we're looking out for, but as it's a melee skill, we're less worried about the Reflect than an off-screening thing. It's always been less dangerous, and the solution is to make it easier to see and avoid a Reflect monster, or to prep your potions and pop them as fast as you can as soon as you slam the ground and see a Reflect monster.
There is that delay that gives you a chance to activate those blasts, I suppose.
But I mean, we have lowered the danger of Reflect significantly from when it was the aura. So
Agreed.
So were you guys putting in this this delay? I recognized straight away when I saw this delay that this is like, it seems like such a good way of limiting the benefit of attack speed, because you can only get attack speed. Well, attack speed will only boost damage up to the point of the fact that you can't put down a second fissure for the Earthquake skill. Was that kind of like, that was the goal there, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, the skill started out working quite differently, where every time you slammed, it replaced the fissure rather than not being able to place another.
God, that would have been so awkward to play.
Yeah, that was really like, you have to, as soon as someone gives you a frenzy charge or something like that, and your attack speed is increased above that point, then you're no longer getting the aftershocks at all unless you're stopping between each attack. So we shifted to it doesn't replace the fissure, you just keep it there, so that if you get a bit faster, you might lose a little bit of DPS until you reach the next sort of gap. Usually the way we're seeing people build this locally is having it so that every 2 attacks your aftershock goes off. That way you still get a reasonable attack speed, and you get the explosions relatively frequently.
So if a fissure is down, that initial hit of damage still happens though? Like you can still hit mobs with that kind of initial shock that I saw in the video?
Yes.
Okay.
You sort of want to figure out, are you going to go for 2 or 3 hits or 1 hit between each? Like,
there'll be like break points there.
Yeah, with Mirohi and a high enough less duration, you can get it so it's 1 aftershock per slam. But other than that, you're either purposefully waiting, or you're slowing down your attack speed, not taking any attack speed on the tree. We don't want it a bad thing if you have to go through a 5% attack speed cluster. It just modifies how else you're going to build your character.
It would have been a bad thing with the replacing feature. I can totally see why you got rid of that. I was sort of tossing around the idea of you still have the option of scaling attack speed, because you could work in a second 6-link, like something like Ice Crash, to slot in between the skill, and I'm pretty excited for that. Did you guys test that internally at all, like having 2 skills?
Not really. We were just going for the usual build you'd go for. That sort of stuff is really hard to fine-tune.
Leave that to the players.
And it's sort of usually at least when I've been playing the skill, it is you hit the ground once and then you walk away and let the pack explode. Just don't look at the explosion as you walk away. And
cool.
That's usually enough. It's for bosses that you actually need to be spamming the stuff. And even then, it gives you a little bit of mobility where you can take a step, take a step to maximize your damage and avoid the boss's attacks and so on. So you're not necessarily going to want to be keeping the hits up all the time, because it does quite a lot of damage with the aftershock. Like, that is the majority of your damage anyway.
Noted.
So Earthquake looks like it's going to achieve the goal of having playstyles that aren't in line with this attack speed like meta, like this faster is always better. Are you guys worried about, just in the general context, this faster is always better setup though, where people are getting higher and higher, amounts of attack speed, and it's just always better to get more attack speed? Are you guys worried about that at all?
It's something that we always have to take into account whenever we do anything. Obviously, the effects need to be toned down because they look insane once you've got crazy attack speed, or they can actually lag out your party members, or even if it's applying buffs, cause actual problems. But it's not like we want it so that if you want to play a fast, a lot of people enjoy attacking really fast. It's the thing that made you feel really powerful in Diablo 2 once you've got these crazy attack speeds and going to town. So we don't want to cut it out of the game and slow the game down too much.
That's the best thing about an ARPG. When you get to that point where it feels like you're breaking the game, you're just really damn strong. I love that. Something I want to talk about. So Ice Crash was one of those things where it's like it was meant to be like this slower, don't stack attack speed. But once you stacked attack speed, it was crazy. And something kind of similar happened in context with Controlled Destruction. This reduced crit, but the more crit you get with Controlled Destruction, the more insane it becomes. Did you guys feel this was like a failed design, or is there going to be any changes to Controlled Destruction in the future?
It's always something we're aware of, and it was intended that we didn't remove your crit chance. We didn't make it like Res Tech where you can't crit anymore. If you want to use this on a crit build, you can. You're just needing to get or missing out on that 5% crit chance or whatever it is you're losing for adding Controlled Destruction. But we are looking at modifying the increased crit chance support gem to make it more usable, because crit mult was still a DPS increase over Controlled Destruction on some characters at certain points in development. Like, it was still worth using to a point, but the increased crit chance support gem wasn't. So we're looking at things like adding base crit to the increased crit chance support and things like that to make it a bit more useful, a bit more desirable.
It seems like for most builds now, though, that Controlled Destruction is nearly always a better choice over crit damage. Is that because I know like there was a lot of reductions to crit damage in the past because it's something you guys are pretty worried about. Are you guys worried about Controlled Destruction in that regard then? Because it's increasing the damage you do when you crit and also when you not crit. So it's a nice reliability sort of feature, I suppose.
Wow.
Yeah, it's sort of other supports should get a bit better for crit builds, really. If they're 20% more, I guess 30% more damage is the best that you're getting from a single support, or the penalty needs to be harsher. But it's sort of we'd rather have it if you're a crit build, you are making a tough choice between losing a bit of crit chance for this mult or getting the insane damage on your crits, or the higher chance to crit with the increased crit support gem.
Okay.
And we're not going to, it is the reward for builds that don't want to crit as well, so we don't want to penalize that entirely.
It's something that's been thrown around and throughout the community is why isn't Controlled Destruction a less multiplier? Just like you can't crit like an RT almost, like a Resolute Technique.
It's really just so that you can, it is still a choice for a crit build. We don't want
choice for a crit build. Right. I feel any crit build I play, even like Bladefall 5% crit, it's like astronomical for my damage.
If that is the case, I'd have to look at the stats to check if this is something that everyone's doing. Then that is something we need to improve. But yeah, we don't want to. If we are having it reduce your crit chance further, it'll be probably reducing it further or having some other limit on it, rather than making it so it's straight up a damage loss at some points.
Zeno wants to play a Cold Snapper using Controlled Destruction.
That's not what I was hinting at. What I'm saying is it's just one of those things where it's like the initial intention is you do more damage, lose some crit, but in every crit build, it's better than a critical strike multiplier gem. It feels like, at least.
Right. There is a change to crit mult that is coming that will possibly mean that the crit mult support will get a rebalance as well. So it's really hard to say. There's a bunch of stuff I can't talk about that I'd like to talk about with this stuff, but
yeah, we're like raving about the balance of things now, but you guys are all
next.
working on this stuff behind the scenes for the next expansion. You're like, it'll be different with all this other stuff.
Yeah. Ascendancy classes are going to change it up as well, which will probably give you, I mean, obviously the assassin is going to have more crit than anyone else, which might make controlled destruction even better for the assassin class, but because they'll already have so much crit. Or it might be, we really got to see how the balance shapes up with all this new stuff coming out.
Well, that was a perfect segue there, Rory. That's the first thing I want to ask you guys is we're going into Ascendancy subclass system. Where the heck did the class identity come from? Because, that was the thing about Path of Exile. You play this game, anyone can play anything, but suddenly we have class identity. Where did that whole idea stem from?
It came from the fact that anyone can play anything worked almost too well, where the difference between the classes was not their theme or how they played, but like which path on the tree was more efficient.
Which 2 nodes you wanted at the start.
Yeah, so some of the leads really wanted to just add some more, make it more important what your choice was. It was a tough call. There was obviously some objection to it for the people who really liked that anyone can do anything, but the things that we were coming up with for the Ascendancy classes were so exciting that it was hard not to do it because of all the cool stuff we got to add from making your class choice matter. It's going to be really... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's going to be really interesting to see how it actually affects build diversity, and how many builds we're going to have where you're going to have rangers playing the Juggernaut for this or that bonus that it has, whether we're going to further move classes away from their own identity or push them more towards it.
So that's what I was going to ask, was whether you guys felt that losing a little bit of that freedom was worth it because of the crazy things that this system is going to allow you to do otherwise.
Yeah, it was probably there was too much similarity between the classes previously, and this opens up a lot more. We've kind of got to see how it plays out, but the reaction has been so positive to this stuff that it's hard to say that it's a bad idea when there's so much interesting stuff going on and so many new builds you can do, and also just making your character choice matter way more. Like the first choice in the game will be less of a wrong choice now because you have this thing that supports what you want to do with your character. It's sort of, let's see how it turns out, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be way better you're going to want to play the game more, which is really what we want people to do, because you want to try out all these builds on different Ascendancy classes.
As far as the new player experience is concerned with Ascendancy classes, there's no real way to see what Ascendancy classes you're going to have available to you when you select your class. Is there any, have you guys thought about putting on the class selection screen maybe some little tidbits about their Ascendancy classes, like where they can branch off into, so that people when selecting the class can see that?
We won't be doing that at first, no. If it turns out that it's a real problem a lot of new players have, then we deal with that. But already a new player seeing the passive tree for the first time is kind of overwhelmed. Telling them that there's going to be even more important choices based on what you're choosing right now is going to turn away more players than it actually gets them make the right choice. And we've made all of the Ascendancy classes so there is always a path you can take that can do whatever build you want. If a brand new player decides they're going to play a two-handed Cyclone Witch that just does attack bonuses, there is still something in the Ascendancy classes for the Witch that let them do that.
That's an interesting segue into my next question, is because in most cases, for most builds, there's going to be something for your class that works. I think that's true. But there is some cases where, for example, people are concerned about trappers and summoners in particular, some of the more niche playstyles, and how the Ascendancy classes for those respective classes are very much going to be the best choice. How are you guys feeling about that?
We've kind of known all along that there are going to be some really powerful bonuses for Ascendancy classes that are going to feel mandatory for builds. Whether they actually are when you crunch the numbers, when you compare it with the specific bonuses that other classes are getting, that's something we have to crunch the numbers for. But if there is a really powerful bonus that it feels like you can't play the game without for one build or another, we're probably going to introduce it in another way, be it on a unique item or something like that lets you, it doesn't restrict trappers to the shadow only.
Oh, that's good. one of the things I'm worried about is like let's take the new Pathfinder for example. You know, the balance around unique flasks is they don't have surgeons, and surgeons did just get nerfed, but it's still very strong. But now unique flasks can have surgeons, and with Vessel of Ink there, Taste of Hate, and Rumi's Concoction existing, and so many flask nodes on the tree, is there going to be any kind of like balance tests beforehand? Because that's just ridiculous.
Oh, it's definitely something that we have been testing and made sure it's not too good. Compared to the other Ascendancy passives, it's a way higher skill build than, I mean, this isn't a build that anyone can do, even if they have the flasks, because keeping your flasks up all the time and the sort of the build way you need to build your character is very different compared to some of the other classes, which are just straight up a boost to damage and defense. The unique flasks are tricky because we aren't seeing as many people using them as we're expecting, considering the power level that they have, but they're it's really hard to say because they're not seeing the use we're expecting. They're not fitting into as many builds as people. I mean, people are often building towards them and getting the relevant benefit, but not that many people are actually doing that. So it's tricky to say.
It's just like the high level meta. It's one of those classes where maybe only high level gameplay will choose.
Yeah, it's intended. I mean, it was designed by one of our most experienced high level players as the thing that he wanted to play and the thing that he wanted to do. He didn't want straight up damage bonuses or defense bonuses. He wanted something clever, something that felt really different, that changed how you play and gave you a massive boost for focusing on this one mechanic.
So out of all the Ascendancy classes, Rory, the thing that I think most people are worried about, you know, we have 6 points. Once you lock in that point, is there any way to even respect these points first off?
Oh yeah, and you can refund them with the same refund points that you do the regular tree. It's just way more expensive per point than it usually is. So
they take like 5 refunds or something, do they?
Yeah. I think that sounds like the right number. Yeah, so it's going to be a costly thing to do. You can't do it all the time, but it is possible. And the same for changing your class. I'm pretty sure there's a very expensive thing you can do to change your class if you really regret your choices.
Okay, so there's a way to change the class too. That's good. The next thing I had is which out of all the ones out there, because you know, like Powercreep is going to be pretty real next patch. Which one's your favorite? Which one out of all of them do you like love the most, Rory?
It's tricky because I worked on, like, the way we did the classes is that a bunch of designers all got a class to look after. I had the Marauder and the Duelist to start with. Jeez. And then later on we took over. I mean, once people had done their designs, Neon and I took all of the classes and reworked, because everyone had very, very different strategies. Like, all the classes to start with had very different power levels, very different directions, different levels of specialness, and so we have since gone back and iterated on them. The Duelist is probably going to get some changes to his nodes already, because already since we revealed the Duelist, we've made some changes to the power level and the philosophy of all of this stuff, and there may still be rebalances before release. The numbers aren't final just because, well, there's so much to test with all this stuff, so many possible builds. So as to which one's my favorite, I'm probably kind of like the Inquisitor the most, because he pushes his theme so well. Like, you get I really like when we came up with the idea of using Consecrated Ground for him. This is just the perfect fit for the character. As for which one I'm actually going to be playing, I'm probably going to be playing one of the Shadows builds. I think the unreleased one. Wait, have we revealed them all yet?
I mean, we can right now. I mean, no qualms here, Rory. You can get in trouble back in the office, but we won't mind.
It's the Steve Ascendancy class, where a guy called Steve turns up and just helps you out.
Steve from Minecraft, confirmed working with Notch. All right.
That non-sponsorship.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to just hanging out with Steve. You know, just having a good time. He doesn't give any combat benefits. He's just a chill guy to have around.
Just a chill guy.
Yeah.
Is the hideout Ascendancy class?
Yeah.
buffs to the hideout. Well, I'm glad you said that. I thought you were going to be like Scion, but I can't say why, you know.
And we're all curious what the Scion is. I mean, that's like the most hype of them all, because it's like one Scion to rule them all. This is it.
Yeah,
what are they going to do with it?
I was all excited to see what people said about the Ascendancy classes, which revealed, and it was all just, what's the sign going to be?
That's it.
So yeah, no, the sign's going to be real interesting. It's just like the most of the interestingness of the things. Yeah, no, I can't say anything else.
As beautifully eloquently put, Rory.
I've been working on the sign this morning, and I thought I probably shouldn't be doing this because I'm just going to accidentally let slip that she has access to Steve as well, or something like that.
I see.
Oh.
She doesn't have access to Steve.
It's just like I theory crafted.
Where is this conversation?
Sion, you
going?
always have Steve.
This is
blowing up.
In order to prevent myself leaking spoilers, I've invented Steve, so he'll help me out.
Steve. With these guys, as Zeno said, we're having some obvious power creep because a lot of these things are very powerful. But you guys are obviously retuning things as a counterpoint to that balance. And I think you mentioned that on another podcast you're on recently as well. What my question is I feel that you get this power creep and then it's rebalanced so that you're not really much more powerful in relation to the content, but you have more choice. Is that kind of the idea, like the end goal of it? Because people are really excited about Ascendancy classes right now because they're strong, I think. I feel like people get hyped for things that look really strong, and that's typically what people say. But what I'm more interested in is it being more choice. And is that kind of like where you guys are looking to take it?
Well, yeah, obviously the choice is the whole point of the Ascendancy classes, so you've got more interesting and more impactful choices, like making them feel like they're making a difference when you take them, while making them not too powerful has sort of been the challenge all along. There's boosts to damage and attack speed beyond what we would even put in the regular tree, just because it needs to feel, when you've got those conditional bonuses that don't always happen, that you notice them right away without having a buff icon or effects going off. So it's been really tricky, like trying to keep that low. We've made some changes, we've made some additions, most notably new stuff added to Cruel and Merciless difficulty, like actual new content as opposed to just turning the numbers up. But at the same time, despite these really impactful bonuses, they are not as big a power boost as they first look. There is multiplicative damage increases, but they don't really compare to some of the other damage increases you can already get in the game from some uniques and items, and sort of the ways that builds are made. It also comes down to making the most powerful builds less powerful, the ones that are sort of the current meta, having less of a shifting the meta so that there is a more diverse choice of skills in addition to these choices of Ascendancy classes, and at that point you reach the sort of same power level as we have now. Like, obviously Bladefall is very popular, and there are some other skills that are very popular at the moment, which will either be getting balance or mechanical changes just to have them fit with other skills that are sort of the intended balance, and then the Ascendancy classes will boost them up to the sort of top tier builds that we've been balancing around.
There's kind of a bit of an argument with people falling on, one of two sides of Ascendancy classes will reduce build diversity, and other people on the other side saying it will increase build diversity. It seems like obvious that a dev would fall on it would increase build diversity, or otherwise why would you be doing it? But do you fall on that side of the argument for that? And why, I guess?
Whenever we release any new content, especially if people haven't had a chance to play with it much, and it's not just straight up more damage numbers, it's going to increase build diversity for a time until people figure out what they want to be doing. The biggest reduction to build diversity is people being able to communicate with each other and say, I've tried this out and this is the best. And we're going to get that no matter what maybe one of you guys is going to say, like, this build here, this Ascendancy class feels far more powerful than the others, and there's going to be a shift in that direction. And in the same way as we have with skills, we're probably going to get some number tweaks to these Ascendancy classes if one proves to be superior numerically. But the idea is that you want to be able to try. It opens up more potential builds. It's really for the Johnny player that's about trying new things, and those eventually turn into spike things, whichever ones are successful. There's always going to be the thing that is calculated to be the most clear speed or the most damage.
Johnny beta testing for Spike.
That's usually how it. I mean, that's Vaal Spark in a nutshell right now. I mean, let's be honest. It started off as a Johnny and ended up a Spike, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if melee summoner is going to be that way, like this.
Oh yeah.
That's I think that's like my lead example when I'm talking build diversity in relation to Ascendancy classes is this idea of, well, a melee summoner doesn't really exist that much apart from dominating blow right now, but this is going to open up some interesting potential there.
I mean, the amount of health return and mana return you can get from or just health return from Bone Offering alone with an Aegis build would be crazy as a witch, you know?
Yeah. There's a bunch of crazy stuff. I mean, ideally, there's so much crazy stuff that no one knows which is the most efficient, or that they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Like, there's a lot of things in these trees that can protect you from stuns in one way or another, but so there's going to be a lot of people that care less about stuns, but then they're not putting their points in the things that are giving the crazy damage increases, or the things that protect them from ailments, or the things that give them more mobility. Like, ideally, the build differences will be the strengths and weaknesses, rather than the amount of damage that they're outputting.
All right, well, we got about 10 minutes left, and there's some quick balance questions we wanted to go over here. The first and foremost is the Victor's Flask. You know, for a while now, Leech is like, back in March when beta came out for the Awakening, Leech was kind of changed drastically. We just got some more attack-style Leech, so we can Leech with elemental type attacks now and chaos-type attacks. However, Victor's is just some next-level crazy 30% Leech mana in life, and what the heck? That's all I have to say.
Whenever the topic of Flask comes up, I'm just like, a lot of the time I feel like I can answer, like, for you guys, my perspective on what I think you guys are going for with things. But with Flask, I just don't know how to answer. What's going on with Flask, man?
What's up with Victor? It's just like so crazy.
There is a lot of discussion among the developers on this. I don't even know which side I'm on because both sides have some really good points. And I mean, the main point for them being so powerful is that the fact that there are flasks, the fact that you have to use them, the fact that you need to be doing damage and of a certain type of damage, and it needs to, and the leech is, I mean, the leech being instant is sort of the biggest thing, but then you could get that anyway by taking Vaal Pact. The amount, I mean, obviously there's a cap on leech if you don't have a instant leech, so that's just making your leech go to full, but then having a leech support gem gives you that all the time for free. There's a lot of trickiness with the balance that makes it hard to quantify, and it kind of also comes down to the fact that not that many people are using this. Although there's a big buzz around it and everyone's talking about it, it's surprisingly way lower in the stats than considering.
I mean, it's a bit difficult to get your hands on. That's the main reason why there's not many people using it.
They're like 20 C
in
hardcore.
Stat in relation to that?
They're like 20 chaos right now. They're so cheap. I mean, maybe because Havoc and ETUP haven't used them yet. I mean, Taste of Hate is still the premier, oh my god, OP, until you put on a Victor's and you're like, what the heck have I been missing out on? You know, it's just that strong.
It's kind of, our stats have shown that, I mean, Taste of Hate is more powerful, is more likely to receive a nerf just from the numbers that we've got and the actual testing that's been done with it by our high-level experts. But there's constant discussion about this, and everyone has their own opinions on what the right power level for this stuff is. There's more changes to flasks themselves and the base flask stuff that is coming in the Ascendancy that makes it even harder to work out whether these unique flasks are still going to be as powerful or perceived as powerful as they are at the moment. It's really tricky. I'm certain there's going to be a change to these flasks in some way, shape, or form, but I have no way of telling you what it's going to be because there's so much discussion and so much contention about the subject.
I'm on board with these flasks being extremely powerful, and like I like the idea that you activate a flask and you really freaking notice that it's active. But this is what the main thing that confused me about Vinctors is that it still has 2 uses and that you can have 100% uptime on it. Like, it's not hard to achieve 100% uptime on most of these flasks, Taste of Hate, Vinctors, things like that, even with just one of them or close to 100%, effective uptime when you would need it. Like, that's the biggest part that confuses me is the fact that it is so easy to have these up for so long. Like, Vinctors has a decent, the regular duration, you can still get the 2 uses out of it. So it's not at all hard to get like just the flask nodes in Witch and have, or like a like a belt mod and have 100% uptime.
Yeah, there's constant discussion about. I don't even have that strong opinion compared to other people on this stuff because there's so much. I mean, there's a lot of testing, a lot of balance testing was put into these flasks before they released because we wanted them to be powerful. Like you're doing a lot to get these things, and they should have a big impact on your character. You should be making full use of them when you've got them. You're obviously usually giving up a second flask slot to purge the shock off you with the Vinctar's flask and that sort of thing. So there are costs to your character, and also now you're using the belt that has the extra flask recovery, which you might not have used previously, which makes it. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not still super powerful. It just means that is how big a cost are you actually paying for using it. It's really hard to figure out, and which is why there's so much discussion. And why I am sort of on the fence about it still. Everyone has good points, and it's really cool that there's this thing you can work towards in the game. Like, there's not many RPGs that don't have some awesome item that people are working towards that has some sort of... And this has a lot that you need to do to get it, and so it should feel awesome when you do get it, right?
It's just one of those things where it's like, I have to use a Life Leech gem and Warlord's Mark to notice my Vaal Pact on like a CI build, for example. But then I can put on a Vessel of Victor with Physical Lightning, and I'm like, whatever, it's like, good to go. It's just, I don't know, I didn't understand it until like, you actually mess around with it. I was messing around with it last and I was like, this is just crazy.
I saw someone with their only lightning damage coming from Herald of Thunder, and they were healing to full with it instantly.
Yeah, heal to full, like that. Ugh. It is what it is. I'm sure plenty of testing still.
Yeah.
Let's go into the next one. It's been 9 months since the reduced mana gem has been changed. Back in the day, you had like a level 15-ish or so reduced mana. You can run Hatred Grace. Now you have to spec into something like Charisma or get Enlighten. How do you feel over there at GGG with the reduced mana change?
This is sort of something we have to keep the power level of auras and of heralds lower than we'd kind of like because of the cost, and even after the reduced mana change, people are still using an awful lot of auras, and it's such a big, despite the change in power for them, it's still... Although it's such a big investment, it's so mandatory. It's kind of ruined our mana, like how it's changed how we have to think about mana quite a lot, because now people absolutely want to use auras, so now they only have 10, 15, 25% of their mana pool left to do it.
Yep.
We'd rather that mana pool be higher, and so we can do more stuff, like so that people maybe occasionally want to use a mana flask or something like that without having Mind Over Matter. But it's sort of, I'd rather that people had less of a reason to use more auras, and turning the reservation costs down and removing the reduced mana was a shift into making it so that it's less of a cost on your character, while still costing more mana at higher levels. It also came down to how flasks felt at low levels. Now how auras felt at low levels. Now people can use auras more easily at low levels before they get reduced mana, without needing reduced mana, which made it feel like a choice when you first picked up the gem, not as impactful on how you're actually paying for your spells.
Do you feel Enlighten was, the whole purpose of reduced mana was you don't feel that need for it, but still it's like you still need Enlighten for some of these things. Do you guys like the redesign of Enlighten?
It's a good reward for a late game high wealth character that they get to have another aura, or they get to have more mana. Having reduced mana feel mandatory for so much of the stuff was, it's sort of, if every single person's using the same support on heaps of their skills, which is just reduced mana on all their auras in this case, then you might as well build it into the skill. And Enlighten was really just, no one was using Enlighten. We wanted a use for it, and we wanted something for a high-level character to be able to do to improve their auras if they really, really wanted to. And so that was the solution that was come up with. And I think it's worked well enough. Obviously, people would rather get it for free, effectively free, like they did with reduced mana. It's now actually something you need to work towards, but your build will still function without that third or that fourth aura. So it's not like we're destroying build diversity. We're just reducing the power of some characters by cutting accessibility.
I feel like a lot of the problems with this topic have kind of resolved themselves through the implementation of more and more auras, and especially like 35% things like blasphemy. Yeah, I feel like that has been like a solution, because now often instead of like being like, well, with this build only really needs grace and hatred, so I need to get charisma. But now I'm like, well, I might just run blasphemy and hatred, or blasphemy and grace.
That's good.
I feel like that's solved a lot of the problems there. But were you guys thinking about that ahead of time?
Not necessarily with blasphemy. The heralds were kind of the thing that was originally there to be the cheap thing that you can use instead of an aura, to give you an equivalent power level without having the sort of crazy group synergy of auras and all that jazz.
The problem with heralds, though, is that they're 25%, which is like, people are going to hate me because they're like, no, don't ask for increasing things. But I actually like that blasphemy is 35 over 25, because when you run hatred, and then you're like, all right, now I'm going to run Herald of Ice and Herald of Ash together, or Arctic Armor and Herald of Ash together, and you're 100%. So you need to get the aura reservation nodes again. Whereas blasphemy, you're like 50%, 35%. You're like, okay, now I just don't worry about investing in aura stuff. Like, I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting how psychology pushes that stuff so much rather than actual. Yeah. It's one of the biggest problems with the mana reservation thing is that people want to be as efficient as possible, and in doing so, often make themselves less powerful or less efficient, or just make life a bit harder for themselves. And there's nothing really we can do about that. So I'll make them 35%, seeing as you asked so nicely.
Oh, come on.
Now, chat's blowing up already, but I don't think heralds need to be 35%. I like that blasphemy is 35%.
We're going to get a Reddit thread for you, Ziggy. Good job.
Number the boss again.
Oh, no. Can we just talk about Steve again, please?
Unless it's Herald of Steve.
Herald of Steve. Feel Steve, man. Oh, geez. Well, I think that's all the questions I had. Do you have any last-minute questions you want to ask Rory? We're about an hour now.
Any questions I want to ask?
Yeah, you said you wanted to ask Ziggy and I a question on Skype earlier to throw us off and put us in the pressure seat for once.
Nah, I got nothing.
Got nothing.
You guys,
next time you'll have to make a primer of your own, Rory.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate you coming by today, Rory. You answered a lot of very important questions the community's been wondering. Thank you. And, I mean, I know that you just did another podcast over there at What's Up Raid Class, so the amount of community involvement over there at GGG has been pretty high, especially with you, so cheers. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, Rory, you deserve a Christmas bonus, bro. Yeah. I know it's not Christmas,
but... I deserve Christmas, yeah. Awesome. Well, it's always fun to hang out with you guys and say things that I'll regret saying later. No,
that's it.
I just imagine now after the podcast, you like walk out into the wide open office and everyone's like, "Boo! Why'd you say that? Oh my God, that was supposed to be secret."
Can you guys throw in an Easter egg when you release the next Shadow class? Somewhere in there, just put like Steve in the art or something. Just Steve. Just do it.
Turns out the Shadow's name was Steve all along.
Oh, that's it.
Secrets.
It's not Steve. It's Barry. No, his name's not. I can't reveal his name. It's top secret.
Okay. Steve Barry confirmed. All right. Thank you again. That's it, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rory.
Thanks for
awesome, man.
Thanks everyone out there for tuning in for episode 46. I hope everything goes good and Ascendancy gets released sometime mid-March. I'm excited about it. Cheers.
Me too. See you guys then. Catch you later.
All right, bye.
Bye. State of Steve.